United Nations appreciates Nigerian president for providing genuine leadership.
We commended the president on his resolve to reform and return discipline in the public service, as well as some of the success he has achieved in trying to fight corruption.
NCDC records 321 new cases of COVID-19 as task force insists air travelers must present test results before boarding.
The validation process for the pre-boarding PCR tests have shown 64% came from evacuees and the people who are returning from other countries.
Sultan of Sokoto meets Kaduna State Governor, sues for tolerance amongst diverse ethnic groups.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss challenges in union elections and governance.
Unions and associations are platforms to advance the cause of members or protect their interests in line with the laws establishing such organizations.
And so the ascension to the leadership of such organizations is also usually spelled out in the bylaws by which the organizations are supposed to be governed. And indeed, those positions, of course, are also tenured.
And over the years, the race for such positions are usually based on the contributions made by the individuals or services rendered to members of such association or by consensus.
However, there's been a change drastically, of course, in recent times as the race for leadership in some unions or associations has been characterized by accusations and counter-accusations, violence and rigging, as well as other malpractices that you normally would find in general elections in the country.
And some of the cases at hand include the Nigerian Medical Association, Nigeria Labour Congress, National Youth Council of Nigeria, Nigeria Football Federation, Nigeria Bar Association, Nigeria Union of Journalists, Road Transport Employees Association, and the likes.
So why is it that we are beginning to see that persons vying for some positions in some associations often employed underhand practices or other form of malpractices, as it were, to assume leadership? Is it for purpose of service? Is it really for service? And indeed, why should candidates go to any length, as it were, to ensure that they assume the leadership of associations or unions? Now, could the quest for this leadership actually be for other purposes? Now, how would the challenges that we are beginning to see in the governance of unions or associations be addressed? And what should be done to ensure that those who aspire to lead associations or unions are indeed competent and, of course, not motivated by materialism, but rather by the interests of the members of such unions and associations? These are the issues we intend to dissect this morning as we focus on challenges of union elections and governance. It's Good Morning Nigeria, the second for the week, and I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I welcome you to the program.
And I am Jumo Yusuf. Thanks for joining us. We are transmitting Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We are live from our studios here in Abuja. And we shall bring you and also the morning news and also serve you other complimentary segments in the course of the program. But let's join Naja'atu Tijani with the morning news. Good morning, Najah.
Good morning, Jummai and Kingsley. Here is the morning news presented by me, Naja'atu Tijani. The United Nations has commended the Buhari administration for giant strides recorded so far in the fight against insecurity, indiscipline and corruption, which it describes as critical towards placing Nigeria on the path to a sustainable future. The United Nations resident humanitarian coordinator, Edward Callon, announced this during a courtesy visit to President Muhammadu Buhari.
On his resolve to reform and return discipline in the public service, as well as some of the success he has achieved in trying to fight corruption. It is not only a fight of Mr. President or institution. Everybody has a stake in fighting this menace in society today.
I'm very grateful that United Nations has put up such a formidable team that is dedicated to helping us. I assure you that we will continue to participate as much as possible to make your job feasible.
The federal government says managing disasters at all levels must move away from the traditional way of handling to a more effective service delivery, especially in the midst of COVID-19. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Saidia Umar Farouk, stated this at a retreat for heads of territorial, zonal and operations offices of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. The retreat has as its theme effective and efficient service delivery at operational level.
We must evolve strategies for prevention, preparedness, mitigation, and response.
The Sultan of Sokoto, Muhammad Saad Abubakar III, has added his voice to the call for tolerance, respect for rule of law, and peaceful coexistence among the diverse ethnic groups in Kaduna State. This was after a closed-door meeting with the state governor, Nasiru Ahmad El-Rufai, at the Government House, Kaduna.
Express his support for our efforts at bringing peace in Kaduna State. He is happy that many people have come, all talking about peace, and he should not be left out, particularly in light of our historical relationship.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 321 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country. The breakdown of the cases cutting across 24 states shows that Lagos still has the highest number of infections with 98 cases, followed by the FCT with 34 and Kaduna with 30 new cases. Nasarawa State has 25 new cases, Benue 21, Plateau 17, Rivers 15, Adamawa and Ogun states have 11 each, Enugu has 9, Edo 8, while Delta and Ekiti states have 7 cases each. Other states include Gombe with 5 new cases, Ebonyi 4, Bayelsa, Kano and Ondo 3 cases each, Cross River, Imo, Kebbi and Niger have 2 each, while Abia and Bauchi states have 1 new case each. So far, Nigeria has 52,548 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with 39,257 treated and discharged, while 1,004 patients have died of the virus so far. And ahead of the resumption of international flights from the 29th of August, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says travelers must present a negative PCR COVID-19 test to be conducted within 7 days prior to boarding. This forms part of reviewed aviation protocols by the task force, following concerns over the validity of some COVID-19 test results tendered for some evacuation flights.
Unfortunately, the validation process for the pre-boarding PCR tests have shown, for instance, in Lagos on Saturday 20th, that stood at 404 of those cases. 64% came from evacuees and the people who were returning from other countries.
Airlines will be fined $3,500 US per passenger if they fail to comply with pre-boarding COVID requirements.
And to media matters now, rehabilitation work at the Federal Ministry of Information Building, popularly known as Radio House, has continued despite the slowdown it experienced on account of the COVID-19 pandemic.
What I've seen from the model, in a few weeks' time, we're going to have a brand new radio house. The visit today has been quite useful because it has given us the opportunity to also make some further directions and also see how fast this whole project can move.
Nigeria's broadcasting stations are playing a critical role in the effective dissemination of information on COVID-19. However, the increased technological possibilities can be used with high premium for national interest. This was the major takeaway at the 6th annual lecture of the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, held in Abuja.
It continues to be very important in society. Of course, the media faces a lot of challenges, but that in all things there's national interest and there's the need for the media to professionalize, in which case they have to imbue their ethics, and there has to be a degree of responsiveness, to national interest.
That concludes the news this morning. The program continues with Kingsley and Jummai after the break.
You're welcome back. As Nigeria's GDP contracts by 6.10% in second quarter of 2020, Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission advocates intensify state efforts in diversifying the economy. Details on Business News with Chimobi Walter Naji.
Latest report by the National Bureau of Statistics says Nigeria's gross domestic product GDP declined by 6.10% year-on-year in real terms in the second quarter of 2020, thereby ending the three-year trend of low but positive real growth rates recorded since the 2016 and 2017 recession. The significant drop reflects the negative impact of the disruption caused by COVID-19 pandemic and crash in oil price in the Nigerian economy. Figures contained in the GDP report indicate that the performance recorded in second quarter of 2020 represents a drop of 8.22 percentage points when compared to second quarter of 2019. Meanwhile, the chairman, Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Engineer Elias Mbam, has called on state governments to intensify drive towards diversifying their revenue base to boost internally generated revenue, taking a cue from the federal government's effort in the development of agriculture and solid mineral sector, which are now contributing to the federation account. He made this call while receiving the annual State Viability Index report in Abuja. He said the state's dependence on federation account allocation is not healthy for the sustainability of the state economy and advised state governments to note their viability index as contained in the report for improvement. In another development, African Development Bank says its upcoming 2020 annual meetings, which is going to be held virtually for the first time in its history, is geared towards building Africa back and better after the COVID-19 pandemic. President, African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, who is running as the sole candidate for a new 5-year term, says the bank will continue in its interventions to member nations in light of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic to cushioning their economies, health systems, and livelihoods. With Business News, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
All right, thank you very much, Chimobi Walter Naji there for the business package. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
And we're starting the paper review this morning with the Daily Trust newspaper. And just below the masthead, Kano Hisbah commander emerged in child trafficking saga. Find details on page 7. First female acting vice-chancellor emerges at University of Lagos. That story is on page 7. International flights carry COVID-19 patient, pay 3,500 fine. That's coming from the federal government of Nigeria. Details on page 6. And the bold headlines there is Nigeria's economy records worst decline in 10 years. With rider, COVID-19, others responsible. That's coming from the report. We are suffering from unemployment, price hikes. That's coming from Nigerian citizens. Rescue efforts, not enough. Experts are talking here. You find all the details on page 5. And the picture story you see there, some victims of the Southern Kaduna crisis residing at an internally displaced persons camp wait to receive palliative being distributed by personnel of Operation Safe Haven at Zonkwa in Kaduna State yesterday. And just at the bottom plate of the Daily Trust newspaper, governorship, Buni urges Amechi Sylvia to deliver Edo and Ondo elections. You find details on page 34. Insecurity, use dialogue, political approach, UN advises Buhari. Details on page 4. Gunmen kill 1, kidnap 7 students in Kaduna school. You find details on page 7.
All right, let's take a look at the window page of the Punch newspaper. And above the nameplate, we have a number of headlines there. It says 331 and 3 job losers withdraw 116.87 billion naira from pension accounts. Once again, over 331,000 job losers have withdrawn also well over 116 billion naira from pension accounts. Details can be found on page 19. $500 million Chinese loan already approved. Probe unnecessary. That's according to reps. Details can be found on page 2. Sultan visits Kaduna and El Rufai says monarch came to preach peace. That's page 7. On page 11, international passengers who evade Nigerian tests face travel ban. That's attributed to the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. 2 earpieces there beside the nameplate. Boko Haram governor. That's the kicker. Melafia declines police invitation, secures injunction. That's page 9. On page 11, over 100 Nigerian students killed in 4 years. Over 100 Nigerian students killed in 4 years. These are Nigerian students overseas. And that story is coming from NITCOM. That's the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. Details can be found on page 11. Lead story says with another kicker, 6.1% shrinking of economy. Federal government won't be able to service rising debts and fund budget. That's according to Mann and others. Details on page 17, but with the following riders. Things are tough for the average consumer and inflation going up. That's according to manufacturers. Tackle rising inflation and employment, says Lagos Chamber of Industry. Channel forex into productive sectors and reduce leakages. NECA advises the federal government. And the photographs you can see there, it says applicants during their screening for recruitment into the Nigeria Police Force in Gombe and Lagos on Monday. You can see them there in their uniforms. And unfortunately, if you take a look, if we have a zoom into that photograph, I was wondering why they couldn't mow the grass before they started the parade or before they started their exercises. You can see the grass is overgrown. So
yes.
Perhaps that should have been the first exercise.
Quite uncomfortable.
If they had a lawnmower, this is not the day for machetes and all that, or slashers as they call them. Now, Kano approves 489 million naira for 2020 NECO and Arabic examinations, page 9. Abductors collect 5 million naira, release Zamfara ex-commissioner's children and guard. PDP reps plan suit to stop 774,000 jobs. Igbo unions condemn Enugu killings and drivers protest members' death. That's page 11. Bandits raid Kaduna town and school, kidnap scores, kill 1. Borno fixes local government election for November 28th. Well, good news. Well, that's for Borno. Unfortunately, that's right. Unfortunately, you have a number of other not so salutary stories. Abductors collecting 5 million, releasing and ex-commissioners' children and guard. That, of course, re-emphasizes the point that kidnapping is still a thriving industry, and that's almost a sure banker for whoever gets into it, until, of course, they get caught by the law enforcement agents. Now, the killings in Enugu are also reported there. But there are other issues, Jume, that I would like us to talk about. This one, the story concerning the death of over 100 Nigerian students abroad in 4 years. And this is attributed to NITCOM, that's the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. Now, the trigger for this revelation, of course, is the recent death of a 25-year-old Ibrahim Bello, who is the son of Justice Amina Bello of the Kaduna State High Court. Now, just before he passed away, he was alleged to have committed suicide, but the mother doubts that very much, because she said the day after the incident happened, she was there and there was no sign of injury or wound on the body of the son. Now, this was a WhatsApp message that the mother said she received from the son before he died. "Mama, please, I want to come back home. If I stay here, I will just die here without anybody batting an eyelid. I just need to come back home. Mama, please try to understand that this isn't the place for me."
This is a very, very heartbreaking message, something that would stick for a very long time. For a mother, a message like that is, in her heart, she knew that something bad was going to happen. And, you know, when I was listening to the news yesterday, he said he discovered something and it's all a scam. And I think, well, they are alleging that he was killed, not suicide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's most unfortunate that this is happening to young Nigerians and indeed to their parents and loved ones. Now, if you say 100 Nigerian students on record have died in 4 years, that means that every year we have lost 25 Nigerian students abroad, which also means that at least every month 2 Nigerian students have died abroad. If that were to happen here on Nigerian soil, what would be the reaction? There would be a sense of alarm.
Yes.
That raises the pertinent questions as to how much due diligence parents and guardians undertake or are willing to undertake before they send their children and wards abroad to universities outside of our shores. I mean, it's unfortunate this has happened, and everybody is just almost desperate to say, oh, schools in Nigeria are run down, which is not true. Let's face it, it's not true. Oh, to say, look, my child is abroad, my child is abroad. And then you have these scandalous incidents taking place. This one, of course, is more particular with regard to northern Cyprus. Yes. But what is the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs doing? This is a diplomatic issue, and this, of course, will be beyond the scope, I believe, of the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission. So what is the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs doing? The Nigerian government ought to take it up with the authorities in Cyprus to see what happens to the students and ensure that the students are well protected. Yes. And if you recall, this same scam that has been alleged now with regard to schools in Cyprus was also what was uncovered some years ago in Ghana.
Yes,
that some of those so-called institutions of higher learning were operating in porter cabins and makeshift.
Ghana and Cotonou, actually.
Yes, both Ghana and Cotonou were operating in porter cabins and some of that makeshift structure. So it's not, I mean, it's sometimes we have a Nigerian mentality of flowing with the head and saying, oh, your child is abroad. But do you know where your child is?
Actually.
I think we have to worry about this. Just before we take the editorial, so that we can discuss that along with the lead story, which has to do with the shrinkage of the economy. The reps are saying that the $500 million Chinese loan already approved, and the probe is unnecessary. Some weeks ago, we had the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, Minister of Justice, and Minister of Transport, who were here with us, to discuss the details of those loans and the usual clauses you would find in international agreements involving a sovereign entity and a creditor who is external to you. So, if the realization is not that the probe is unnecessary, why did you embark?
It has
on
already
in the
been
first
signed.
instance? That's right.
And I remember, I think that was what the Minister of Transport said even when he was here. Now, let's now move to the editorial, and it's coming from the Nation newspaper, and we're still talking about resettling the economy and answer to the COVID-19 challenge. I'm just going to read a little out of it, and it says, the truth is, the signs are already there. Since COVID-19 broke, the Apex Bank has had to adjust the rate of exchange twice. First in March, when it was adjusted from 307 to 361 naira to the United States dollar. And last week, when it was again adjusted from 360 to 380 naira to the dollar at the parallel market, the naira has suffered even a worse fate as it now hovers between 470 to 490 naira to a dollar. And it went further to say that rather than mourn the recession, which appears inevitable in the circumstances, a more productive way out is for the federal government to see the current season as an opportunity to reset the economy. Time, of course, is of essence here, Kingsley.
Well, that's right. The editorial is echoing what needs to be done with regard to the shrinkage of the economy, which of course has been expected worldwide on account of what has transpired in the world and still ongoing with regard to COVID-19. But there are specific issues that we also need to focus on, and the editorial happily draws attention to those issues. Now, we can say that the fall in crude oil prices has impacted our forex earnings.
Yes.
That's one leg of it. Now, but we are also told that the pressure on the naira arises from the fact that foreign portfolio investors are selling off and therefore converting whatever their receipts are into forex and then taking out those receipts into more secure, more profitable investment havens. But there is also an important point that the editorial raises, and that has to do with our forex expenditure. That one of the most significant sources of expenditure has to do with importation of fuel. It's scandalous.
Which we have in abundance in the country.
Absolutely. It remains scandalous that the country is spending so much importing fuel. The kind of argument you hear from time to time, one would suggest it's not reassuring. Oh, everybody is waiting for Dangote to complete his refinery and then Dangote will begin to supply. Then you also hear, oh, modular refineries will work and then they will begin to supply us. Yes. In the meantime, there are 4 refineries under NNPC, and those refineries are operating at, I would say, less than 20% according to the latest account. Kaduna refinery, of course, is consuming so much money, producing very little. 2 refineries in Port Harcourt, another in Warri. So how can we continue like this? That is a major source of pressure on our forex.
Exactly.
And I think the government can address this.
It's been too long.
Absolutely.
It's been too long,
Absolutely. So we hope that this is done very expeditiously. Then we see how we can begin to reset our economy in the light of the coronavirus pandemic.
Exactly.
All right, Jumai.
So we'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation begins. Don't go away.
It's unfortunate for me. I think it is just the power that comes along with the office. The power first, then secondly also the financial clout that comes with it. If you look at it properly, you see that if you, for instance, if you are the president of a group, you are the person that signs the monies that come. And in this part of the world, that has played a very large factor in everything that we do. So most times that people struggle for offices is because of what comes out of it. In fact, greed is also part of the game.
When it comes to leadership, something is wrong. And it has to do with our value systems. We have lost it when it comes to value system. Every tribe in Nigeria, we have value system. We know what is moral. But along the line, we all lost it. Every leadership position now is not about going to serve people, serve the association or whatever, but it's about what can I get out of the leadership? What can I get? And that is exactly what is happening.
But when you see what I want to call sectorial interest, where some people feel we want to run their affairs the way we want it, they will always want to hijack the process. That's why you see, even among professionals today, you see before any elections, they have thugs already hired, so that immediately it is not plain, things are not going their way. They use those thugs to hijack the process.
You how much violation and generate in a year? You better say you will fight for that. If they tell you how much architects the association generates in a year, you will fight for that post. Because some little organization, we by ourselves, we don't do audit their account. When they audit their account, you will know that they are investing money in that. Anywhere you look at, they are fighting. There's money there.
The whole thing is a quest of power. All of them are just thirsty of power. They want to be in power. They don't care any other thing. You understand me? And so long as they are thirsty for that power, they can do undo just to achieve that.
And joining us in the studio is Comrade Issa Aremu, Vice President, Industrial Global Union and member of National Institute. He was also the former Vice President of the Nigerian Labour Congress. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning.
Okay. Also in the studio is Professor Innocent Uja, President, Nigeria Medical Association, NMA, and also Vice Chancellor, Federal University of Health Sciences, Otukpo, Benue State. You're welcome to Good Morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right, still with us for this conversation, I'd like to welcome a regular face, Dr. Abdul Rahman Abu Hamisu. He's a political scientist and public affairs analyst. Good to have you with us this morning, Dr. Hamisu.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with you this morning.
All right, and then also part of this conversation, would like to welcome Comrade Hafsat Shaibu, who is of the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria. Comrade Hafsat, pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, fellow comrades. Thank you so much.
All right, so let's, gentlemen, it's fairly obvious from what we had in the background report, the views of some Nigerians on what appears to be now unsavory development of desperation by members of associations or unions to assume the leadership positions in those unions. The immediate trigger for this conversation was a video and a still photograph that went viral some weeks ago, arising from the fracas at the elections of the Nigerian Medical Association Enugu branch. It turned out that one of the medical doctors had his head broken and blood trickling down his face, and certainly we had not seen that in the collection of professionals, particularly of medical doctors. So we want to start this conversation by getting on and then asking our guests. First, the new president of the Nigerian Medical Association, exactly what the reaction of the NMA, national body, has been to what is clearly an unpalatable occurrence in Enugu.
Well, thank you very much. What happened in Enugu was an unfortunate event. It was totally unexpected. It is a one-off activity. As you know, following that unfortunate incident, on behalf of the Nigerian medical doctors, I apologize to Nigerians and non-Nigerians, because doctors have not been known to take such a path, very shameful path, and we call it a show of shame. It's a show of shame because totally unexpected, totally unwarranted, and totally unnecessary. It's totally avoidable. Following that, the Nigerian Medical Association set up a three-man committee, a fact-finding committee, to go to Enugu to find out, to tell us what led the remote and immediate causes of that unfortunate incident, and recommend to us what next to do. They are yet to report to us. Probably by this week we should get their report. But It is something that, in fact, I am ashamed as the president of Nigerian Medical Association. And I got calls from Europe, from US. Doctors are not happy that doctors in Nigeria, in Enugu State, well, it's not Nigeria, Enugu State, would behave that way. They were behaving like thugs. I'm sorry to say that, but that's not the training of doctors. Doctors are disciplined. There is no militancy in medicine. If you want to be a militant, you leave medicine. We have order of doing things. And we had a national election on the 30th of May when I emerged as the president of Nigerian Medical Association. And there was no noise. It doesn't mean that in elections people may not have their own feelings, but that should not result in what happened in Enugu State. It's a shame. Unfortunately, as if that was not good enough, only 2 days ago, on Sunday, the IPOP went wide in that place. So is there anything in Lagos, in Enugu, that is situating this factor? Because we just finished what looked like a fracas in NMA in Enugu State. And 2 weeks, we have another fracas from IPOP. So by and large, we are not happy about, and it's going to be the last.
We hope so.
It's going to be the last.
Okay, Professor.
As the president of NMA, I will ensure that will be the last, even when I leave office. It has never happened before.
We hope so, Professor Innocent Uja, because the medical profession is looked at as a gentleman profession.
That is what I mean. And that's what it is.
Exactly.
And that's what it remains to be.
Okay.
That's why I say there's no militancy in medicine. It doesn't matter what you... In fact, in medicine, yes, we have democracy, but your democracy is guided. You have guided democracy. You cannot go wide like what happens in the Nigerian space. We are more refined than that by our training. Even in the universities, you find that medical students rarely participate in union activities because the time is not there. Grace anatomy alone will take all your time.
Thank you so much, Professor Innocent Uja. We'll get back to you. Thank you for your opening comment there. Comrade Issa Aramu, you've been in unionism for a very, very long time. And it's the perception mostly of people that when they call you a comrade, you're uncompromising, you're stubborn, you're raw. Is that perception real or not?
Well, I think... once again, let me say good morning to viewers and Kingsley and your able self. The way you put it, you said, I've been in this business for a long time.
Yes.
I thought we should say all of us have been in the same business because all workers are members of unions, yes. And I also use this opportunity to formally congratulate my new president of NMA, Professor Innocent, who interestingly is my senior at the National Institute. It's also a fellow MNI.
Thank you very much.
I think to answer your question, Kingsley, in your opening remark, you referred to, and I want to use the word you use, unsavory development, which means you agree with me that this has not been the norm. Let's be specific with the case of the NMA crisis in Enugu. NMA is one of the oldest independent professional associations in this country, established as far back as 1950 or so, 51. Nigerian Medical Association. If you also go back to Nigerian Bar Association, that's old as, it was formed in 1933. As a former president of Nigeria Labour Congress, I can say here that we celebrated 40 years of, uninterrupted building of trade union movement, 2 years ago, because the current NSA was formed in 1978, after restructuring, and all the affiliate unions also marked the anniversary of our 48 years of existence. My former union, which is the National Union of Textile, Garment and Tailoring Workers Union of Nigeria. By the way, I like your African print. I hope it's made in Nigeria.
Yes, it's made in Nigeria.
Also, we marked our 40th anniversary 2 years ago, and the last conference we did was 12th delegate conference. We've produced 7 presidents, and we had regular organs of our meetings. We have delegate conferences over the years, the 12th from existence. And without rancor, without seamless, because we have constitution. Of course, Nigeria Labour Congress, we had our last delegate conference, 11 delegate conference. Of course, we had a rupture in 2015. But the beauty of it is that NSC is fully back now. We had a rupture in which, and I can discuss some of those details later, in 2015, in which we had a faction, and later on some faction went to form another center, United Labour Congress. But the beauty of it is that in July this year, both the two factions had come together. So I think I want to say that as embarrassing as the development we have now in Enugu NMA branch is, I think the bigger picture is that by and large, trade unions, professional associations, civil societies are part of the integral structures of Nigeria. And over the years, they've been quite stable, to produce leadership and also represent their members. But I want to commend the NTA for focusing on this dangerous development, because the issue is sustainability of those democratic traditions we have put in place. Not only that, I felt quite embarrassed when I also were reading about development in some unions, the affiliate of Nigeria Labour Congress. I hope it's not true. We now have factions within the National Union of Local Government Employees. There are 2 leaderships. They've gone to court. I was also told that we have a problem within the National Union of Food and Beverages Workers Union, in which an emergency delegate conference held at the wee hour of the night, around 12 p.m. Again, this is quite departure, from the tradition we are used to, because trade unions, are democratic organizations. They have their constitutions. They hold elections. They are defined by their constitution. In my own union with the NSC, is every 4 years. And if you are elected officials, you are entitled to go for 2 terms. After that, you have to step down for others to come in. Now, in the case of we, the report I had is that they are amending the constitution for tenure elongation.
in unionism.
Oh yeah, that's
strange.
Allegedly. I hope this is not true. And I was completely also saddened that the current president of the union, who interestingly, I'm not sure the date now, 2004, I presided over his elections when he became the president of Food Union. They also had crisis that time. NSC delegated me to go and conduct the election, which they had in Nasarawa 2004. Initially, he was 2-term deputy president. Then he became president. Since that period, 2004, he ran two terms. Now I was 2 years, run 3rd term, and then now they want to amend the constitution for possibly 4th term. And so I want to say that this is a very dangerous development, and the danger of it is that it undermines representation, of the unions to defend their members. I think it's good that we're focusing on this development so that it's not just the state institutions that we look at, that politicians cannot conduct election, they can't hold association. We should also focus on civil society, because in any case, those who run the state come from the civil society. Yes. So if there are no best democratic practices, there's nothing you can expect in good governance. But I want to say, by and large, these developments are very abnormal. They're exceptional, because by and large, organizations, trade union movement, which I represent, are having seamless democratic transitions without this kind of development. Even the Road Transport Workers Union, I was impressed the former leadership of Comrade Najim. He had tried to sanitize it. Road transport used to be, by the nature of the industry, used to be very turbulent. But even there, they became more stable. And I don't think professionals like doctors must be seeing. I think they should use their injections to help patients, not to
not become patients themselves.
Not to inject themselves.
Yeah. Well, Comrade Sarah, thank you very much there for your opening comment. Let's bring in now Dr. Abu Hamisu. Dr. Hamisu, both Professor Uja and Comrade Saremo have taken it from the perspective of trade unions or professional associations. But here we are. I mean, if you were to look around, I just do a review of publications or news stories about the number of other associations or organizations. They are virtually, I don't know which of them is in court now or which of them has had its matter settled. NANS, that is the Nigerian Association of National Association of Nigerian Students. You don't know which faction is on, which faction isn't on. Nigerian Youth Council, you don't know which faction is on, which faction is not on. You go to religious organizations, and the members are either in court or they are tearing each other apart on account of, listen, who will be the president, who will be that. What exactly are we seeing?
Well, thank you very much for your question, and it is something that is something that any well-meaning Nigeria need to focus on, because as a comrade Isa Aremu rightly pointed out, democracy is not about going to vote and then after voting you go back to your homes, or because we have division of power among the three tiers or between the executive, legislature, and then the judiciary. It goes beyond that. Civil society simply means that we're having a conversation, we're having dialogue, and we are willing to resolve our differences peacefully without fisticuff, without resorting to violence. This is what is known as civil society. When we're beginning to witness militancy, use of force, use of violence in civil society, it means something is fundamentally wrong. We have a belief in this country that the easiest access to wealth is when you occupy a position of authority, whether in civil society or in a constituted authority or in the armed forces. And that is why the push, the urge, and the drive to go to any length, using subterfuge, using violence, using coercion is beginning to gain traction. And for any member of a professional body or association that is willing to serve the people, that wish to personify the objectives and the core values of the association, then violence is not your calling, because you are offering yourself to serve. And then your members are at liberty to vote for you. But here, two factors are driving associations, especially professional associations. Yeah, to some reasonable extent, they are well conducted. When we talk about associations like NANS, like Nigerian Youth Council, and the rest of them, two factors are driving these young persons. They believe that once you occupy such position, you have access to those in power. And by that, you have what we call connection in Nigeria. And not performing so that you are rated based on what you are doing to promote the interest of the association and the members, but access to those in power, because it is calculated that at the end of it all, that will translate to economic power. So the fight becomes so fierce, the stakes become so high that nobody is willing to do anything that will lead to peace. So it's either I get it or you don't get it. So the calculation is, if you are coasting home to victory, then it means I have to truncate the process, because by the time you get to the finish line, you are declared the winner and I lose out. So the calculation is not the interest of the association, it's not the interest of the members. It is the personal. So the motive of those that are contesting the election is very, very important in this regard. Because if I know Kingsley can serve very well and I can serve very well, all we need to do is to talk to our members. We present ourselves. Based on our qualities and merit, people will vote. But if the interest is to use the association to pursue our own agenda and interests and those of our cronies, be rest assured that we'll truncate the process at any point in time, because the issue there is either I get it or nobody else.
Okay, Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, thank you so much for your opening comments. We now go to Comrade Hafsat Shaibu. She is the TUC Nigeria Women Commission. She is the national chairperson. You've been listening to all the guests in the studio talking about unionism and how it is now turning into something else. So what could be the reasons for this unhealthy development in trade unionism?
Thank you so much. I want to take us down memory lane. Just last year, the TUC Nigeria had their delegates conference, and it was seamless. Shortly after that, the ASBIFI, it's an affiliate of the TUC, they also had their national delegates conference. As a matter of fact, a woman emerged as the president, and then shopped this, and on 29th of last month, the Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria also had their National Delegates Conference. It was successful despite the restrictions and everything. It went seamless. It was successful. And on Thursday this week, Pengasem is also going to have their National Delegates Conference. We are believing God that it's going to be seamless too. What actually happened in Enugu is embarrassing, but I think that the ranks was infiltrated by people that are actually not medical doctors without the knowledge of the doctors. It was embarrassing, but it's sad. Anyway, I don't believe medical doctors would do such a thing. Like I said, it was actually infiltrated without them knowing. But we are not politicians. We are trade unionists, and we know how to conduct ourselves when we get to the polls. I don't know. It's embarrassing, but then it's all good. I'm very sure they would get over it. Thank you.
I want to stay with you still, Comrade Hafsat. Listening to Dr. Abdul Rahman Abu Hamisu, he talked about the desperation to occupy leadership positions in unions and sundry associations, that it's now become, as it were, a sure route to economic security. What's your comment on that?
Can you take that question again?
All right. Dr. Abu Hamisu, one of our guests on this conversation, did say, among other things, that the contest for leadership positions in unions and associations has become so fierce because in recent times it has become the surest route to economic security, as it provides a channel to political power brokers. What's your comment?
Not true with the staff unions. The major aim of every trade union is to get a better and improved working condition for its workers. So I disagree with that statement in total.
All right, we will give Abu Hamisu the opportunity of responding to that comment. Abu Hamisu, what's your take on that? Now, again, let me assist you without asking a leading question. There is also the view out there, sometimes grounded in fact, sometimes in speculation, that some union leaders who are supposed to be on the side of the members often get compromised by their employers or by the government, so that they back down when they have rallied everybody to a looter.
Yeah, you see, one thing my sister is not opening her minds to is the fact that whatever you see that is the vocation of man is subject to abuse. The easiest thing to do is to abuse. Abuse processes, abuse institutions, abuse privileges, abuse positions. And one of it is what you alluded to. Sometimes it is even the management that prop up some part of the members to hijack these unions in order to do their biddings. So it is either these managements have their ways, or they compromise the union, and the union will remain without leadership. And then people like Comrade Issa Aremu are saddled with the responsibility of reconciling factions. So that is why sometimes you see them breaking apart and you see them coming together again. These are some of the issues. Now, the second factor is depending on the motive of the person that is contesting. Now, you have somebody who is in tune with the core principles of the association, and the person wants to do the right things by ensuring the welfare of the members. But the other persons that are contesting, theirs is how much has the union contributed. So how can they arrange with manufacturers of bikes? They will purchase and distribute to members, and what interest will accrue not the welfare of the members. Okay, we can do this without interest because our members are suffering. At other times again, during Christmas, Salah period, the union usually buy rice to distribute to large members. Some of the people that are contesting, these are the attractions, not because they want to alleviate the suffering of the members, but what they can get from the body of the members. So all of these are on record. It has happened. If you go through ministries in the universities, it happened. Even the SANU, the NASU, all of these are happening. So it's the motive that is the issue. Where you have people that are contesting, and therefore the interest of the association and welfare of the members, that is when you don't find rancor. But when you find opposing forces that are not ready to compromise, it's either one is doing the right thing, the other person is not willing to do the right thing. So it is on record. I'm not speaking because I hate unions. I'm part of that tradition from the very beginning, and I'm still part of the tradition. But the obvious truth is this: where you find people working for a common cause, it doesn't matter. It's a gentleman thing. It doesn't matter who emerge. The most important thing is the interest of the association and the members. But when you are finding bloodshed, violence, then you should know that it has gone past the interest of the association and the core principles and the welfare of the members. If it is the welfare of the members, you are not willing to die because of the interest of the members. You always realize that there is always a next time, and you can always present yourself. And whatever the people decide, your members decide, that is the reflection of your character and relationship with the people. That defines what they brought to the box. So people don't go into election, for instance, Prof that is seated there, emerge without any rancor. What led to that process is because his co-contestant and himself are about the interest of the association and ensuring that there is stability and order. Because without stability and order, you cannot really run whatever association we are talking about.
Dr. Abdulrahman, I'm still going to stay with you just a bit. You know, unionism is like, working in the office. You start from somewhere, you grow slowly to the highest level of unionism. What beats me is when you start, you're so, filled with so much passion, to fight for the welfare of your staff. And when you get to the top, what happens? How does the reasoning change?
Well, this is a very good question. I think I was once there. I represented the students, and I knew what happened. The passion was there, the backstabbing, the betrayal, and the management will continue to say, you don't understand what is happening. Until you move from being an agitator to sit in the saddle, and then you have different complaints, different challenges that you have to solve. At that particular point in time is what is most urgent. But to every member of the community of civil society that is agitating for one thing or the other is urgent. But you as the leader that is receiving the complaint, you are at liberty to determine what is urgent. And by the time you start doing that, you need to prioritize. And by the time you are prioritizing, some people will feel neglected. And by the time they feel neglected, there will be agitation. It's a normal thing. There is a gap in understanding between the agitators and those that are taking the decision. And that is why going forward, we've been recommending every part of management should be either student union or trade union or professional association bodies should be represented, so that they too can be aware of the challenges of the organization. And when they go back to explain to their members tend to believe them more because they were part and parcel of the process and the decision making. But when you leave them and there is a gap between the unionists and then the management, always what you find will be fracas. So people used to feel that since he has changed position from an agitator or a unionist and then becoming a governor or a permanent secretary, or this, his thinking has changed. It's not as if his thinking has changed, but the circumstance of his office and the demands, especially for those that want to do the right thing. I'm not talking about those that want to do the wrong things and they invent excuses to really bamboozle people, and then they take the wrong decisions. While they're telling you to wait, there is no funds. You see them traveling abroad without forfeiting their ESTA code. You find them buying new vehicles that are not even needed in the organization, simply because there is something in for them or because they want to service their luxury. So the most important thing is how transparent is the relationship between management and the Unionists. And what is underpinning that? Service to the members or service to oneself?
All right, Dr. Hamisu, thank you very much. Let's bring in again Professor Innocent Uja, President of the Nigerian Medical Association. Well, we're not going back again to what happened in Enugu, but just general management of associations and the kind of incentives that some persons have to aspire to the leadership positions of those entities. I'm wondering, in your case, what was your motivation?
To be president of Nigerian Medical Association, is that correct?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very good. Now, let me just say, before I answer your question, right now, all the branches have had their elections. We have 37 branches, including FCT, and there has not been any noise. So far, no reports have come. Even if they have come, there are no fracas like that of Enugu. So what it means is that what has happened in Enugu is just one finger that soils the oil. And that's why we're in a bad light, before the public. However, to your question, I've been in the NMA activities since 1981 as an SHO. And I've been consistently consistent as a member of NMA. Even when I was Director General of Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, I was chairman of AIDS committee, which I have been for a while. And the essence is, as a doctor, there are two components. One, how do we improve the care of our patients? What way can we negotiate? What way can we lobby? What way can we consult to improve the care? As you know that the health system in Nigeria is in tatters. That's to say the least. And what motivates me, having seen through since 1981 to 2020, you can see it's a historic period. In 1983, as you know, the early 84, one of the reasons for the coup in Nigeria was that hospitals have become mere consulting clinics. So I've been in fact, at one point or the other, in activities of NMA, I was sacked in 1985. But that did not prevent me from moving forward and believing in the Nigerian Medical Association and also believing in the welfare of the doctors and also the care of patients. So my motivations are basically two. One, we must improve the quality of care of our populace. Two, the welfare of doctors must be taken, in fact, must be a priority. As you know, the brain drain is continuing. We must halt it. How do we halt it? By creating enabling work environment, by ensuring that the basic requirements for healthcare are provided. You will recall that even with the COVID pandemic, which is a tragedy, worldwide, we had to struggle to get PPE. We need to protect ourselves and protect the patients. Happily, the situation is improving. But if not for those agitations, probably we would have been in a mess. And I must commend the health workers of Nigeria because of their commitment. When it started, it was thought that probably Nigerian doctors and other health workers will not be able to cope. But you can see what is happening. In 2014, I was DG. I was a co-chair of Ebola Treatment Research Group. And we were held worldwide. I went to about 3 or 4 international conferences. And the question they ask is, how did Nigeria do it? Because they don't believe anything good will come from Nigeria. So what we have is, we have commitment of doctors, and I believe other health workers. But we need enabling work environment. People should be comfortable to work. We should motivate our workers, because that's very important. If you motivate me, if you're in Europe and America, you'll be working from morning till night. You don't even know the days are going. Because you are in a comfortable zone, whatever, if I say I'm a gynecologist to begin with, if I want to go, if I any reason to do cesarean operation, within the time I make that decision and the time I put a knife, it's about 10 minutes. 10 minutes, because everybody is on standby. But in Nigeria, sometimes we sleep Once we take a decision, probably the baby is not well inside and needed to be delivered very fast. It may take 3-4 hours, and you have to wait. Is that a conducive environment to work? So these are some of the factors that we think we should correct, and those are my motivations: welfare of Nigerian doctors and welfare of the patients.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Uja. Now let's come back to Comrade Isaremo. Comrade Isaremo, of course, your background is in trade union activism, plus better welfare for Nigerian citizens in general. But focusing on what we are seeing now as the desperation to rule and govern associations in general, including unions, some persons are arguing that perhaps what is playing out is those who are desperate to rule associations and therefore resort to all kinds of means and measures are invariably taking advantage of their followers, of their members. Because even though associations are governed by their own constitutions and bylaws, members are too distracted to get to know the letter and spirit of the constitution or of their own bylaws, the so-called rational apathy in corporate governance, which is why Dr. Hamisu talks about abuse of power. So the man gets into office and he finds that it's a route for him and his cabal in that particular association to economic security. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think we are more or less saying the same thing between Dr. Amisu very critical assessment of civil society, and I think we need that. We need a lot of self-criticism between his comment and that of my sister from TUC. I think it's more or less the same thing, and I think Professor Innocent, you put it better. The motivation really for you to lead any mass organization, trade unions, professional, the motivation is contained in the constitution of the association, which is to defend the interests of the members. The National Union of Petroleum and Gas Workers Union, NUPENG, has just picked up a battle now against Chevron, which in the condition of pandemic, is a company that declaring profit, yet sacking workers. I mean, it's bad enough that you engage in mass sack of about 145 workers, but you are doing so through text messages, contrary to the spirit and content of the labor laws. Nupengas giving strike notice now. That's the motivation, the anger against injustices, against the plight of your members. So whoever wants to run or lead trade unions must be fired by the anger and the passion against injustice of members, not about hunger of he or myself. I have to underscore this point because associations have come a long way, and that's why I went on that memory line. In fact, the first trade union in Nigeria was established in 2012, Civil Service Union. We had the centenary 2012. So to tell you, unions are even older than the Federal Republic of Nigeria. National Union of Teachers, 1933 or so, of the father of Fela was the first president, the Reverend Father Ransom Kuti. I've also told you how trade unions have come a long way, 40 years. So over the years, we've built structures. Unions have become relatively more stable. We have automatic checkoff. Which means once you're a worker, you must pay your dues. I'm very sure doctors, you also pay similar things. And as they say, it's only condition that make crayfish to bend. Because in those days, doctors generally are very arrogant. They don't go on strikes. But when they discover that doctors' pay can never deliver their home, they are now just the same to Academic Staff Union. Also used to be purely professional association before it became trade unions. Now, what I'm saying is that over the year, we build the structures, and you can see unions have buildings. I'm from Textile Union, we have buildings in Lagos, we have in Asaba, we have in Kano, we have in Kaduna, and the unions have become more respectable. Then you also have structures, full-time officers who are employed, presidents who have become respectable. Now, the whole idea of this structure is for the unions workers to have the power, so that they have the voice. And over the years, many of our leaders have done very well in that respect. The first president of Nigeria Labour Congress, Asasumanu, Ali Chiroma, they brought the new minimum wage. Now we are talking of the fourth minimum wage. A lot of progress have been made, but some young workers now, they don't know how these institutions came into being. They just look at the perk of the offices, the influences that confer on them. They can travel, not only that, you can travel abroad, you collect per diem, and in the process, they become more aggressive. Some of them, not for the interests of the union, but for just the pecuniary interest which they can get. And I think what unions should do, and I would like to suggest that associations, not only that, you said so, even the churches and civil society, what we should do more is that as much as possible, unions must return back to the core values for which they were founded. And one of the basic principles of any professional association, trade union, is unity. You must be united, because if you are not united, you can't fight your oppressors. Secondly, there must be democracy. Unions must obey their rules. So if you have a constitution that says you must be in office for 3 years, renewable for extra one term, or 4 years, so shall it be. You don't amend the constitution midway, as we are now seeing now, in which people are talking of tenure elongation. So what I want to suggest is that unions have to return to the core values, and to know that to lead is about selflessness, not about selfishness. And that's the only way we can remove what I call organization capture, personalization. I was shocked to some of those things we were never used to. People talk of number one labor leader. Number one labor leader, we used to know he earned it, not that he asked for it. Because unions are supposed to breach inequalities. So when you now keep on perpetrating inequality, some union leaders now are not knighted, they are chiefs, some have been turbaned, some call themselves Asiwaju, the same values that were opposed to. I think I used to say so. I've been in the union for almost 30 years. I'm just one among equal. I'm a comrade. I don't even want you to call me a leader. I'm just a comrade. And I think it's important to return to those values, because whoever will lead the movement must be able to prepare for sacrifices. I started from student unionism. I paid a heavy price. In my final year, I have to start afresh. I've been in the union, we've been arrested, we've been detained. That's what the union is all about. So I think unions have to return back to those core values of constitutionalism, of democracy, and that members must have a say. Then transparency. You don't do emergency conference at night in a corner. Union conferences used to be real festival. In fact, elections should come as a small thing. I don't know how you do your own enemy. The conferences are meant to celebrate the achievements over the years. Elections should only come. In fact, ideally, union leaders should be encouraged to lead. Not that you say you want to lead yourself. Because it's about battle. It's about struggle.
See, Comrade Isaremo,
yes.
I would like you to expatiate on this, because perhaps that also speaks in greater detail to why we are having some of these associational challenges. You said, look, return to core values. Unity, democracy, which is anchored on the association's own constitution. But you've cited, at least on more than 2 occasions now since this conversation started, the attempt to alter the constitution so that there will be tenure elongation. The issue is, if you got in on the basis of clear terms of the constitution and there is no situational crisis that should warrant an alteration of the tenure or terms of your office, what then could be the motivation for saying, look, is it that the perks are so sweet now to say, look, it must be a chieftaincy?
No, but that's why I said that, Kisley, it's good that you are doing this focusing, because at times, because of the crisis of governance we have in Africa, the focus has been on the state. That we had a series of problems, during the Obasanjo period. We are talking of tongue-tied elongation. We also know all the stories in the parties now. People talk of godfatherism, we talk of smashing the maize, cutting corner to get to offices, because that's the state it affects. But as I said, there are unfortunate development also in the civil society that go along this line. And the reason why we must be concerned about civil society is that those who run the state come from civil society. Now, if we are not used to best democratic culture, You know, you elect somebody who's a senator who's already used to a mass organization, whether it's the church or mosque, it's always cutting corner. By the time you get to office, you perpetrate the same thing. So I want to say here that it's the point I'm raising. The constitutions of unions are clear, that you must follow the processes, and I think that unions have to build more capacity to empower the members to know what the rules are so that they can demand for accountability as much as possible, but with the best of effort. Chrisley, let me round up on this note. You know, we should also know that trade unions, NMA, Nigeria Labour Congress, even the Alumni Association of National Institute, of which I used to be the Secretary General, these are voluntary organizations. Yes. The power of this organization is persuasion, conviction, not that we carry, I mean, he's the president of NME, he can't call police, he doesn't have bodyguard, I don't have any, you know, it's persuasion and conviction. So, but with the best of it, there will be disagreement, there will be some dissent, which is quite legitimate. Now, the best way to resolve is return to your rules. You know, I mean, when we had that crisis in NSC in 2015, I insisted that let's talk to ourselves. You know, the solution cannot be going to court, litigation. In the court, you get judgment, not justice. Judgment is that somebody is right, other one is wrong. But if you have justice, you can have a win-win arrangement in which you solve your problem. And I think after all the crisis, at the end of the day, what resolved the NSC crisis was that we now engage in discussion with ourselves. And then we now have more inclusion. You know, those who are out are already brought in, you know. And I think there's also tyranny of the so-called majority. People say, oh, we have our way, majority. Yes, in trade unions, you can have the number, but the real job, when it comes to defending workers, is about everybody. I mean, look at immediately what happened after we had the NSC crisis. Yes. Price of fuel was increased by government. We couldn't mobilize the way we ought to, because we already have some of our members, like Nupeng, which is very strategic in petroleum sector, electricity workers, you know, who went outside, you know, and their opinion has the capacity to undermine our collective actions. So you may say they are not many in number, those unions, but they have their strategic value. You know, so what I'm saying here is that it's in the best interest of everybody to make sure we come together. But the last note is that we need new set of leadership who will be selfless, who will be able to look at the bigger picture. I mean, I had my frustration in trade union movement in the last 30 years, but I resisted the temptation of, say, I want to go to court, rather we talk it out. And you don't win all the time. You know, you have to lose, you can always come back, because...
Does dialogue work in situations like this?
Definitely, internal dialogue work, you know. I mean, so you have to promote... In any case, that's what we're asking the employers to do for us, dialogue. Don't dictate to us. So what do you want to dictate to your own members? You know, so we must practice what we are demanding for, social dialogue. And in the process, you discover that when you don't, you know, go to extra mile to live your rules and constitution, unions become more stronger and viable. You know, and I think I want to say on the last note that members must also hold their members accountable. You know, so you can't be there to say somebody changed the rules of the constitution. You know, when you are supposed to be there for 4 years, now you want to change the rules midway to elongate the tenure. I mean, that cannot really be appropriate. So we should fight against union captures, organization capture, you know, by individuals, the way we are fighting against state capture at the national level. But the last point, what we hear a lot of us is that organizations are established to defend the interests of the members. When I listen to Professor Innocent, I mean, if you know the challenges facing the health workers, you know, even at this hour, most of your members do not have personal protective equipment. So how can anybody be fighting to lead, you know, just because it's the perk of the office? You know, when you get there, you need to do the job, which Professor Innocent is doing, with all the challenges that goes with it. I mean, I'm from private sector. I know the industries are going down. You know, the battle we have been waging to revive the textile industry is not yet over. Many factories have closed down. Now, whoever will lead the movement must be able to have the voice, you know, to make sure industry must come back, produce what we consume, engage the government in a credible way to make sure that we have sustainable industrial policies. Now, when you look at those bigger pictures, then you see that, as they say in, I don't know how to interpret that now, Kingsley in Yoruba, you know, any liar, it's only those who have the guts should come out. Yeah. It's not made based on the privileges that you get over it. So, but on the whole, I want to say, and I think this conversation must still continue on the whole, I want to say that by and large, professional associations have come a long way, you know, and that when you look, there are best practices. You know, I mean, TUC, my sister who spoke with TUC also made a point, and I think that should not be lost on us, that the new president of TUC is actually a woman. You know, and I think that's the second time they will produce the president, you know, and I think I wholly agree that there's need for more inclusion in trade union movement. I mean, NSC will produce many presidents in NSC, but not yet a woman.
We need to do that.
Maybe that will temper some of the new restlessness.
Female comrades need to come together.
Women possibly will know how to elongate tenure.
Exactly. You know, you've raised some. Yes.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Well, I was just wondering, Juba.
Yes.
You know, the issue that Corporate has raised relates in part to transparency and accountability. Yes. I would like Dr. Abu Hamisu to also make his comment on this. When we say transparency, it says, okay, follow the rules as stated in your constitution or in your bylaws. When you say accountability, the point is abuse of office arises where there is hardly accountability. That then becomes, as some persons have argued, the incentives for others to also get into office. And the blame is now put squarely on the membership of the association, the so-called rational apathy. Members are too distracted, are too engaged in their own individual activities to seek to interrogate what is going on. We talk about check-off dues here. There have been reports about unions not remitting check-off dues of their members, and that then becomes part of their IGR. When you see the quantum of the IGR, then it must be a source of war.
Yes, I think I concur with Comrade Issa Aremu, because what he has said is we should put a leash around the wild horse so that it does not cause havoc. Because the peck of it, or the peck of office that you talked about is something that is really motivating some persons, as I alluded to and as Comrade Issa Aremu alluded to. The problem is not entirely that of the members. It has to do with even the leadership. For instance, if members don't demand for congresses to brief them, it is your responsibility as a leader, if you are doing the right things, to put out there your scorecard. But if what you are doing is illegal, and you know that members have this information, you will finish your tenure making sure no Congress hold, no meetings hold, nothing happen, then the union is killed. The welfare of the workers or members will go with that. And especially, God bless us, the union and association as cooperatives, where some people are using it with banks and they are making huge profit. They don't want anything accountability, because if you say accountability, you are going to, more or less, I know what I'm doing, and I'm calling for a meeting to come and brief them. And I know that they have this document, they have this information against me. So what will happen, Kingsley? Are you sure I'm going to call for a meeting to come and brief my members? No. And if members demand for that, it becomes a war. Yes. And if we now say you should go, you seek for constitutional amendment to elongate your tenure so that you protect what you've done in office, because the person that is aspiring is a transparent person that believes in the core value of the association. And if he takes over, he's going to do what? He's going to expose me. So what I do there is to sit tight and make sure that I destroy the union from within and nothing happens. So that is why most of the times, instead of this union, as he rightly pointed out, coming together to confront management and demand for the interests of their members, they spend the entire year, the entire minute, the entire week fighting themselves. And then management will encourage that, because no management will want a very strong union. So fundamentally, it behoves on members to be vigilant, because they are the people that can guide the association. Who is aspiring? What is the motive of this person? For instance, Professor Uja has been there since 1981. That is 39 years ago. And from what he has said, it seems he has perfect understanding of the industry. Jumai alluded to that fact, because you need to graduate. He started from a point before he assumed the leadership. If I did mean he started halfway, he would have lost the history of what has happened between 1981 and say 2005 that he finally joined through rupturing the process. And one thing we fail to understand in this country is, if you must destroy in order to succeed, you have destruction awaiting you. Because at the end of it all, what Comrade Issa Adamu say will be your undermining factor. Those people you undercut will fight you to the end. Instead of you achieving the vision for which you contest for, you end up settling internal dispute. So we have two choices to make in civil society. Either we do the right things, follow processes and procedures, let our work speak for us, because if you are consistent, as he said he is consistently consistent. And I know what that means. I need to underline that very particular phrase, consistently consistent. So it means that he has earned it, and anywhere you go, people respect him based on what he is doing. So it's more or less like when you are coming and people are parting ways for you, not because they are shouting, give me way, give me way. You know what that means? They respect you, they don't want to waste your time because you are working for them.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Abuami, so I'll get back to you on other issues before. Well, we need to, link up with Comrade Hafsat Shaibu now. We know we've been talking about transparency and returning to the core values of unionism in Nigeria. What's your take on that?
Thank you so much. I would like to correct my senior comrade Aremu. I never said the present TUC president is a woman. I only tried to talk about how seamless we've had our affiliate union delegates conferences, and I mentioned that one of them was ASBIFI, and as everyone would expect, that it's always very difficult for women to assume the position of leadership. A woman emerged as the president of ASBIFI, but not the Trade Union Congress. The Trade Union Congress is actually being led by a man, Comrade Quadri Olaleye. And talking about transparency, I think we need to go, like Comrade Aremu said, we need to go back to the core values. We need to respect our constitution. No member should take the constitution for granted, and there's every need for every leader to be transparent. And I make bold to tell the members that where you suspect your leader or where your leader is not being accountable, it is your right to ask questions. So my take on this is that we should go back to the core values, like it's been mentioned by my senior comrade Aremu, and at all times respect the provisions of the constitutions. We should at all times be guided by the constitution of our unions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Comrade Hafsat, thank you so much. We'll return to you as the program progresses. I would like to talk about other issues concerning unionism, especially in the NMA, but we'll take a break right now. When we return, our conversation continues.
Like every mother, I'm worried about dangerous insects, especially mosquitoes, which spread diseases like malaria to my loved ones. This year, I'm not afraid. I'm using new Mortein Insta-Kill. New Mortein Insta-Kill's improved formulation knocks down mosquitoes 2 times faster. Not even a single mosquito is spared, because even one mosquito bite can cause malaria. Mortein Insta knocks down mosquitoes 2 times faster.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19. A corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 2255 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
You're welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria. We're talking about Professor Innocent Uja. We're talking about the structure of unionism in Nigeria. We've seen countries where the labor movement are able to take over government. Look at the labor movement in the UK. If our structure is not properly and founded in the foundation of this country, how can we achieve something like that in this country, in Nigeria, if we're still going back to fighting during elections, disagreement, court cases and all that? How can we move the interest of the people to the center?
Well, It's not easy, it's not difficult. All we need to do is to understand the terrain very well. There's nothing wrong in having conflicts. It's ability to resolve conflicts, and that is what they call conflict resolution. So in democracy, you could resolve conflicts without, carrying cutlasses, and hitting one another. The thing is we need political education. That is number one. We need to be educated, because just like we've been talking about, somebody will come. You see, in politics, if you look at politics, those who have grown in politics, some of them started from chairman of, not even councillors, then maybe local government chairman, then they move to House of Assembly, then they move to House of Representatives, then some of them become governors, some of them become, you look at the history of many of the leaders in Nigeria. Many of them were student union leaders. So it's a process. It is to say take over government. I don't think that is the right thing. It's to be able to, is to participate in government. And when you are well grounded in the union activities, you just seamlessly go in there. If there's transparency and accountability and due process. I can't say that much now of Nigeria, because what's happening is that the highest bidder. So, but if you have your integrity intact, and I don't know whether there is still integrity in politics, but some have. If you have integrity, people will follow you. The only thing that will prevent you from getting there is if you are greedy, then you're not patient. I contested the presidency of Nigerian Medical Association 14 years ago. I lost for no good reason. I won the election, but lost the election.
How?
That's a contradiction. But that is what happened. But I didn't bother. And I was not in NMA.
You won the hearts, but lost the votes.
Thank you very much. Probably that's the right thing. You see, I was not in NMA, and I'm not in NMA to become president. I was not. In fact, this one, I've been there for some time. They say, okay, as a vice chancellor, I'm an NMA president. People thought that there would be conflict of interest. I said, no, there will be alignment of interest. Because my being a vice chancellor will help to propel the university, and the university also will gain from the NMA. So the truth of the matter is that we need to be patient. To be fair to be honest, I think that many of us coming behind are very greedy. When we were students, student union was like a play, you are there, you just enjoy yourself. There are parties, you go to party. But these days, president of none, any student, even if it's a local university or somewhere, they have chief of staff, they have PA, they have essay, they have all sorts of things. They have to, and why would you want to have those things? It's not power. And
then they pay courtesy calls.
Yes, courtesy call is okay, but then the truth is that
courtesy call. I'm sure you know what underlines that.
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
You see, one of the things. There are two things I want to say here. The issue of power. I have always said that we need to study the anatomy of power. I don't think anybody knows what power is, because when you see an innocuous person who you thought has integrity, will go into office, and it becomes completely a different person. And that's what my bird says. He said there is no act to find a man's construction on the face. So you don't know anybody. Just give the person authority. Is it traditional chieftaincy? Is it union? Is it whatever position? Just give the person power.
Cooperative or whatever.
Whatever
Prof,
it is.
Yeah, Prof.
Yes.
I want to pause you here and return to Comrade Hafsat. Comrade Hafsat, well, in talking about what needs to be done to make desperation to lead associations or unions or civil society entities, to make the desperation less attractive, the point has been raised that, look, members have to hold those in positions of authority in those associations accountable. But are members sufficiently positioned to actually hold their union, association, or cooperative leaders accountable? One, Hamisu says, look, if there is no congress, if there is no meeting, call for a meeting. What is the experience at such meetings? Are meetings oftentimes not just perfunctory, particularly when it relates to the accounts, whether the accounts are audited or otherwise? They will just say, go to pages 25 and 26, the audited accounts are stipulated there, are approved by the editors. So, for the 1 to 36 and so on and so forth, everybody say hi, and then that's the end.
Not the position at the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria and all the unions affiliated to the Labour Center. We call meetings of the organs as stipulated by the Constitution, and all the audited accounts and every relevant information is made public to the members, and the floor is always opened for the members to ask whatever questions they need to ask, and their questions are always answered, like being responded to a very large extent. So I don't know for any other labor center, but I can only speak for my own labor center that I represent, and all the unions affiliated to the Trade Union Congress. We do not run a one-man show. We don't hide informations. We're very transparent and very accountable. We make everything known to every member to the extent of producing a copy, possibly before the meetings, before every meeting of the organ holds, so that you can get yourself acquainted with the document and get yourself prepared with questions and everything you need to know. And that's what has been keeping us this far.
Okay, Comrade Hafsat Shabu, thank you. Comrade Adamamu, can you respond to that?
Yes, I think this conversation in progress, and I think we should sustain it. You know, all the points have been raised that for there to be strong democratic civil society, trade union movement in particular, although trade union is completely different from the other civil society, for there to be strong independent trade union movement, you know, we have to return to the core values. I've said so several times. First, the unity is very, very important. You know, we have to make everybody to come on board. Then secondly, you must strengthen democratic methods. I come from a union that the founding comrades of our unions, if I want to say founding mothers and fathers, they've laid the structures in a way that we have our constitution to have regular meetings, and it has been very useful. I mean, you know, I took over from Comrade Adams Oshimole, used to be the General Secretary of Textile Workers Union. We normally have regular National Administrative Council meeting. We have our Central Working Committee meeting. We have our NEC meetings. In fact, at times we number them, and I'm not sure the last count now. We had close to 91 or 92 National Administrative Council meetings since inception. You know, we also have regular CWC, which is once in a quarter, and that's where members, you know, have the right to, you know what's going on within the union. And I think that's what we need to strengthen, democratic order of the union. But we also have to promote literacy within the unions, you know, and I think we must bring back history to the trade union movement, because the young workers, young doctors, young members, they don't know how the unions were formed, you know, so you have to let them know what the history is all about. So as we are bringing history back to school, I think we must also bring to organizations to know why are the unions formed, what are the possible sacrifices, and that you need to be fired by passion to defend members, not based on the need for your own personal interest. But with the best of effort, there will still be ruptures in democratic organization. Whenever elections are coming, there will always be tensions like any other thing. But what is important is that let there be basic objective of defending the union, and that's how will lead to compromises. I know of some unions, I mean, even within Nigeria Labour Congress, we have our informal way of balancing the leadership. You know, we also have sectoral balance. You know, don't forget that unions are made of private and public sector unions. You need to, because all the idea is to carry people along. At times, you also have to have gender, and now we are talking of youth, you know, to come on board. And I think with this one, unions can become more stable, but there will always be crisis. There could be, I mean, crises are normal. Now, let's resolve the problem through the internal mechanisms as much as possible. I'm shocked the kind of resources unions are now spending on litigations, hiring lawyers, you know, you know, where we talk of thugs and co, you know, but the one that is even more deadly is the leakage of the union purses, IGR. The union money is now being used to hire senior advocate, lawyers going to court to get
Union
inductions,
dues.
union dues. Meanwhile, these are, if you want to go to court, it's to defend the interests of members, not to put a president in office, a deputy in office, or vice like me in the office. No. You know, I said so in my trade union career, I resist the temptation of avoiding crisis that will lead us to bleeding the union resources. And there will only be crisis, but the best way is to resolve it globally. But on the last note, I was also Kingsley, globally, this is the general picture. You know, I'm the vice president of Global Industrial Union. We also have these challenges everywhere. And you discover that on the whole, Nigeria is even a bit more stable. I mean, South Africa today, the labor center there could start to split, you know, into two, which also affects their voice to defend members because of this juggling for responsibility and positions. I mean, I'm vice president of Industrial Global Union. The union in South Africans unite more on me than with themselves, you know, because of the unnecessary internal agreement.
Do you think political interference comes into play in unionism?
Yeah, at times
how can we detach ourselves from
there are also external pressures, you know, that are there, but no external pressure will fly if there are no internal basis for it, you know. And I think what is important is that unions just remain focused. But on the whole, I'm proud that Nigeria has professional associations, vibrant associations that have come a long way, but we must call a spade a spade. No need to hide. Where there are shortcomings, we must damn them. And that's why, President Innocent, I'm proud of what you said, that you are ashamed of what happened in Enugu. You even apologize that this is not the method of the NMA. Me too, in 2015, I felt quite scandalized, you know, on TV when we were fighting over ballot papers. But now, we have returned back to constitutionality of our union. But unions have so much jobs to do now, which is to defend members' interests. You know, that's why I'm not happy what's going on in the food union. This is a sector now in which robots are being brought to the industry to replace workers. So unions have more job to defend jobs there, you know, than fighting over who want to be permanent president, permanent general secretary of unions.
Robots will be?
Yeah. So, and I think the last point I want to raise on this is that on constitutionality, I think even those full-time officers who work for the union, you know, we should also follow the rules. You know, unions have tenure. You know, once you are 60 years, you should leave. You don't need to amend the constitution. You know, there are a lot of new developments unnecessarily, you know, even the NSC, at a point, you know, they have to amend constitution, I mean, the rules for a general secretary to be in the office for different reasons. Those things creates crisis of confidence, you know. But any problem that happens within these branches, national should help. If the national also has crisis, have bigger unions like TUC, NSC should intervene to mediate very well. But the leadership of NSC TUC can only intervene if they're also impartial.
I was just wondering, is there a, well, this is often used as a metaphor, is there a KBC syndrome in all of this? When a person is, say, the president of XYZ association, you know, he's entering the meeting venue, everybody stands up, you know, like you would for a governor, you accord him all the privileges and respect, perks, and ultimate control of the purse. I mean, we just say, whether a cooperative union, town union, all kinds of things. You find this desperation. But, Jumaya, we have some tweets.
That came in,
go through those tweets now, and then return to get the comments from our viewers, from our guests.
Yes. First is Akiboewa tweets. Like our general elections, trade union elections for senior positions are always challenging. Nigerian unions can improve the quality of the elections by appointing an independent person to scrutinize and manage the elections, including counting the ballot papers.
Titus Bondenok, they want to get INEC to do that? Or,
I wonder.
I want to bring back Fedeco. It's a Titus Bondenok. Greed, corruption, self-aggrandizement, and absolute selfishness are what characterize present-day politics, cutting across most professional associations. Elected officials allegedly loot their treasury and mortgage the future of members into perpetual penury.
And Chris Simon tweets, the challenges in union politics in Nigeria can be tackled. The union leaders should do away with selfishness and greed and work for the welfare of the masses. It's all about doing the right thing when the need arises.
All right, Dele Jack Solomon, unions are essential to a vibrant democracy in reducing inequality and are necessary for low and middle wage workers' ability to obtain a fair share of economic growth. Unfortunately, what we now have in Nigeria is that some union leaders are fighting for their own pockets and not for the masses anymore.
And Akejo Ologbaju tweets, unionism that cannot recognize positive and normative aspect of conflict resolution that will improve workers' productivity and hence their welfare standard is a waste of time, material, and human resources.
Law Alpha C, entrenched interests are usually seen and displayed in most union elections. And it's unfortunate that some of these interests are selfish, ethnic, unpatriotic, and narrow, all in a bid to control the fate of others, even at the expense of the union's extant rules and ethics.
Mutana Farouk tweets, a union is perceived as a microcosm of a larger society. What usually plays out in the election and governance of these unions are not different from the modus operandi of the country. These days, many people are not only after position and money, they are only after position and money, not service and sacrifice.
Solomon Aja, it's so bad the way we go about elections in our unions. More orientation should be given to those unions. It's not a do or die game. Let's allow the people's vote count.
And Mike Kayako tweets, avarice, greed, insubordination, covetousness, nepotism, etc. are the root causes of the challenges in unions elections in Nigeria. We have witnessed this anomaly even in the most respected professions in the country.
Abdulhamid Daura said to become an office holder is a lucrative, easy money-making business that attracts many politicians pretending to be selfless servers. Hence, election being a ladder to a brighter side tends to tip towards a do-or-die affair. We need to change our orientation if we want to move forward.
And Leo Fadaka tweets, union politics, like partisan politics, have moved from welfarism to power obsession, control, and pecuniary consideration, hence the violence to win by all means.
Cecilia Koroma, it has become a trend that most associations in Nigeria, or shall we say some associations in Nigeria, are engaged in disgraceful act during elections. Does it mean that we don't have men and women that will lead by example and give us a better Nigeria? All right, so those are the tweets that we have. I just want to bring in Dr. Hamisu here. Dr. Hamisu, presumably there is a lot of abuse of power that goes on in some associations, which now provides incentive for others to want to replace them when they have the opportunity. Could it also be because that the sanctions regime for misgoverning associations is not strong enough, and therefore you have this desperation to supplant whoever is there or to take over from whoever is there? Because other than, say, removal from office or a split of an association, so you have a faction, you go and form another one, I'm thinking, just wondering whether there have been cases of sufficient successful trial and prosecution of association leaders or persons who have either embezzled the funds or misgoverned, appropriated them to their own ends, even though they are private entities. But of course, it could be an offense if you did that. Do we need to strengthen the sanctions regime in this regard?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what is happening with the association has to do with the interplay between the association and the environment the association is operating in. The KBSA syndrome you are talking about, the issue of looting, cut across the polity itself down to the running of association. And by the time a union leader took like 10 million, and you have a case of 3 billion that ICPC is pursuing, which will take precedent. So ours is a country that accountability is not taken seriously. And even some of the members are not even willing to fight those things because they are only waiting for their time. All they are waiting for is a precedent to be set. And then they will use it as a justification. In fact, to campaign, to mobilize. And as soon as you get them there, they will do worse than what the other person has done. So, and that is why in our own climb, we used to praise past regime. So by the time the new people are coming in, it comes with rising expectation and falling expectation. And then the desperation sets in, either to do the right things or to continue the wrong things. And that is why Comrade Issa Adamu said some people will hold their congresses around 12 midnight, you know, because, because as we all know, Prof alluded to something, which is one of the factors in Nigeria, corruption. You made mention of elections and other things for the highest bidders. Some people are ready to spend. And you know bribery is common.
Where do they get the money from?
That is the question. You see, anybody that wants to do something will plan for it. So you start well. You start well. You've earned your name. And probably through savings and other things, you are able to get your money. If management is interested, they will fund you. That is the external factor you mentioned. Sometimes even the chief executive want people that are pliant, people that can be. So if you go with a demand for your members, and the demand is totaling about 200 million, we'll forget it, for we'll know what to do. Meet my secretary tomorrow, and they give him a contract of, say, 30 million. And from this 30 million, he can get 5 million for himself. Out of this 5 million, he can settle other members of the... So seriously, it takes principle. Let us be frank. Nobody you will give an office to that wouldn't want to enjoy the perk of the office. Nobody. But what we are saying is there should be a distinction between the legitimate earnings and your own interest being pursued outside the association, but not using the name of association to project yourself. So if you use the name of an association to project yourself, you've just caused yourself crisis that you have to settle, not doing the work for which you are elected, because a lot of people will spring up to fight you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. Comrade Aremu, 10 seconds, please.
Yeah,
closing comment.
Kesley, I agree with you that trade unions, mass organization must also keep on renew themselves, carrying out internal reforms, and where necessary, even sanction bad performances. And I can say so in my union, as far back as early 90s, where we discovered some extraction, within textile union, we did our internal probe, and we had cause to find those officers guilty. We even prosecuted them. There are also people who cause riots within the unions based on rumors. Say, don't forget, textile union was burnt in 1993. We have to fight back. When we got them, we have to sanction them. But the way you also do so, you also reward best practices. But anything unions have to do, let it be done independently. Because if they don't do so independently...
best practices, not by tenure allegation.
No.
And on that note, Comrade Issa... on that note, Comrade Issa Adamu, Vice President, Industrial Global Union, member of National Institute and former Vice President, NLC, thank you so much for your insight and input into this conversation this morning. Professor Innocent Uja, President, Nigerian Medical Association and Vice Chancellor, Federal University of Health Sciences, Otokpo, Benue State. It's been a pleasure having you and your clarification on the Enugu saga, actually. Thank you so much. And Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, political scientist and public affairs analyst. As usual, your insight is always a delight to listen to. Thank you so much. Comrade Hafsa Shuaibu, National Chairperson, the Nigerian Women, TUC, Nigeria Women Commission, National Chairperson. Thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you so much for having me.
For today, thank you so much for watching. I am Jumma Yusuf. Please do stay safe.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. See you again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Stay safe and be well.